CL called me a burden, I exposed her fake job and crimes. I never thought the word burden would be thrown at me inside my own husband's family home. I was born deaf, and for 28 years, I've lived with that truth as naturally as breathing. My world has always been a little quieter, but never empty. When I met Drake, my husband, everything felt louder. Not with sound, but with presence, with the way he learned my language, my silence, my rhythm. He is 31 now, fluent in sign, and for 5 years, we've built something steady and whole. His family, at first glance, seemed willing to meet me halfway. His parents stumbled through simple signs, smiling every time they got one right. But then, there was Felicity, Drake's older sister. 35, sharp as a blade, always dressed like the world owed her respect. She was the nurse everyone praised, the one with a lawyer husband and 2 children she paraded like trophies. From day one, she looked at me as if Drake had traded down. It began small, almost invisible to outsiders. At dinners, she'd turn her face away mid-sentence, knowing I relied on lips to catch the flow. When Drake translated, she sighed dramatically as if my existence was a burden on her brother's tongue. He offered to teach her signs. She laughed, waved him off. "Too busy," she said. "Busy saving lives? Busy keeping up appearances? Busy polishing her halo." When Drake and I got engaged, her mask slipped further. At the party, she cornered me with a glass of champagne in hand. "You're selfish," she said, slowly, deliberately, so I could read it clearly. "Making Drake learn a whole new language for you? He could have chosen someone easier." I didn't respond. My throat locked. That night, Drake saw my hand shake as I told him. His fury was immediate and he confronted her. But she denied it, always the same trick, blame my deafness claim I misunderstood. She knew how to twist my silence into doubt. Planning the wedding was torture. She inserted herself into everything Flowers' guest list, even arguing with Drake's mother about interpreters. "Why waste money?" she said. "Print the ceremony out for her." Same thing. When Drake heard, he uninvited her from the bridal party. But she came to my shower anyway, uninvited, delivering a speech about communication in marriage. Her eyes drilled into me with every repetition of the word. Guests whispered afterward, uncomfortable. I wanted to crawl out of my own celebration. On the wedding day, she wore white. Not cream, not ivory, pure blinding white. She claimed the store lighting had tricked her, but her smirk told the truth. During the reception toast, she praised Drake for finding someone who appreciated him, despite his sacrifices. My name never crossed her lips. Guests clapped awkwardly, and I stared into my glass, promising myself I wouldn't cry on my wedding day. 6 months later, we found our dream home. Perfect price, perfect fit. Felicity discovered it and called the realtor, pretending to be me. "We're no longer interested," she said. By the time we uncovered her sabotage, the house was gone. Her excuse, protecting Drake from a mistake, because I couldn't hear danger coming in a bad neighborhood. That was when I realized she didn't just dislike me, she wanted me erased. Drake confronted her again, but she shrugged, played innocent. "Let me carry the sting alone." His parents tried to smooth it over, claiming she means well, but the cracks widened. 2 months ago, when Drake got his promotion, Felicity turned celebration into humiliation. She calculated out loud that he had spent over $5,000 in 2 years on my special needs. Classes, interpreters, devices. She called them distractions, said he could have advanced sooner without me weighing him down. His father snapped, then told her she was cruel. For once, someone else said it, but she only doubled down. That night, I sat in their backyard, staring at the dark branches, wondering if maybe she was right, if love had a weight limit and I was too heavy to carry. Drake found me 20 minutes later, furious and ashamed, and told Felicity to leave. She laughed as she walked out, claiming I was isolating him from his family. And in her voice, I heard the seed of her plan to make me the wedge, the parasite, the mistake. But the breaking point came 3 weeks ago, when I went alone to his parents' house for Sunday dinner. Drake was working late and I thought I could handle it. I was wrong. Felicity was waiting, ready to perform for her children. She spoke clearly, slowly, ensuring I caught every poisoned word. "Some people are born different," she told them, "and it makes life harder for everyone around them." Her son, wide-eyed, asked if Uncle Drake was sad because of me. And she nodded. She nodded. I texted Drake with shaking hands. 15 minutes later, he burst in, face pale with fury. Felicity tried to deny it, but his mother had overheard enough. This time, there were no excuses. Drake banned her from our house, told his parents we wouldn't attend any events she graced. Felicity only laughed, declaring she'd be patient until Drake came to his senses. That night, Drake apologized to me, his hands tight around mine. He admitted he'd been hoping she would change, but now he saw it. She wasn't just cruel, she was actively dismantling us. He promised me it would end here. But promises are fragile when family ties are the chains that tighten around your throat. And so the line was drawn, Felicity on one side, us on the other. What none of us knew then was how deep her lies already ran, or how far she would go to tear me from the life I'd built. No contact sounded simple in theory. Drake told his sister she was banned from our lives until she acknowledged her cruelty. But the next morning, his mother called, voice trembling, insisting that family shouldn't fight like this. She begged us to reconsider, said Felicity only wanted the best for Drake. I could see the guilt clawing at him as he listened. For all his strength, Drake still carried a child's instinct to obey his parents. Meanwhile, Felicity's silence wasn't peace, it was calculation. She didn't apologize, she didn't explain. Instead, she started her quiet campaign. Mutual friends messaged Drake, saying Felicity had confided she was only trying to protect him from my controlling nature. She painted me as the wedge that pried their family apart. One evening, Drake scrolled through his phone, his jaw tight. She's telling people I'm miserable, he signed, that I'm trapped. His hand shook as he formed the words. It wasn't anger, it was shame. He hated that her lies found ears willing to listen. I reminded him of the truth when she humiliated me at dinners, when she sabotaged our home, when she poisoned her children with pity disguised as lessons. But in the dark, shame is louder than facts. That night, he lay beside me, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "What if they believe her? I didn't sleep." I kept hearing Felicity's son asking if Uncle Drake was sad because of me. Children believe what they're told, and those words would root inside him like weeds. That's what she wanted, to rewrite reality in the mouths of innocence. 2 weeks later, Drake's promotion dinner became another battlefield. His parents invited us, swore Felicity wouldn't be there. But she appeared anyway, smiling like nothing had happened. She raised her glass, congratulated her brother, then locked eyes with me. Some burdens, she said, pausing just long enough for the room to hold its breath, are worth carrying, if you love someone enough. The words landed like a broken glass. Subtle enough to sound noble, sharp enough to cut me open. The table went silent. Drake slammed his glass down so hard it cracked. "Enough," he said, voice steady but dangerous. "Leave." His parents gasped, but Felicity only smiled, sipping her wine, as if she had already won. That night, Drake's father finally confronted him. "She's your sister," he said. "Blood matters." Drake's reply was simple. "Respect matters more." But Felicity wasn't finished. When words lost their power, she turned to lies, dressed as concern. She contacted a realtor again, claiming we were financially unstable, trying to sabotage another home we'd begun considering. She called Drake's workplace under the pretense of checking on his well-being, as if planting seeds of doubt in his career might break him down. Each move was small enough to dismiss as meddling, yet corrosive enough to eat away at our foundation. Inside our own home, we began to live like fugitives, checking locks twice, screening unknown calls, rehearsing what we'd say if Felicity showed up unannounced. It felt absurd. Why should newlyweds live like prey? Yet fear made its nest in the quiet corners of our lives. I started keeping a journal documenting every incident, dates, times, exact words. Not for myself, but for survival. If her lies ever grew teeth sharp enough to bite, I wanted proof. I wanted a map of her malice. Ask yourself, what would you do if your sister-in-law tried to convince the world your love was nothing more than pity? Would you endure to keep the family intact, or would you cut the cord and risk being called heartless? For Drake, the choice was clear, but painful. He told his parents, "You can have a relationship with us or with her, not both." His mother cried, his father grew cold. And Felicity, she laughed, because in her mind, no ultimatum could sever the chains of blood. What we didn't know then was that Felicity's facade, the golden nurse, the perfect mother, the admired sister, was already cracking. And soon, her own secrets would shatter everything she thought she controlled. Felicity didn't need fists to bruise me. She used whispers, polite smiles, and forged phone calls. The worst blow came the day we thought we'd found our dream home. A quiet street, a garden that caught the morning sun, space where our future could breathe. Drake and I stood in the kitchen, imagining dinners, laughter, and maybe someday children. But the dream evaporated overnight. The realtor called, voice hesitant. "I'm sorry," she said, "I received a call from you yesterday saying you were no longer interested." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. We never called." She paused, clearly uncomfortable. "The woman identified herself as you. She even knew details only a buyer would know." I didn't need to ask who it was. Felicity. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. She had stolen our voices, stolen our future before it even began. When Drake confronted her, she smirked, shrugging like it was nothing. "I was protecting you. That neighborhood wasn't safe." She wouldn't even hear danger coming. She said she as if I weren't standing right there, as if I were some defective object rather than a person. My ears roared with the silence of my condition, but my fury was louder than any scream. Drake's face turned red. "You sabotaged our lives. Again." Felicity tilted her head, feigning innocence. "I was helping. You'll thank me one day." But behind her eyes, I saw something else, satisfaction. Like a child who broke a toy just to prove she could. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the scene. The house, the laughter we never had, the moment it all crumbled, because Felicity decided my disability made me unfit to choose my own life. I cried quietly into my pillow while Drake held me, whispering apologies he didn't owe. His arms were warm, but they couldn't shield me from the truth Felicity wanted me erased. And her next move proved it. At Drake's promotion dinner, she stood in front of his colleagues, glass raised, and delivered her poisoned toast. "I'm so proud of my brother for carrying such heavy burdens with grace. Not everyone would make such sacrifices for love." The word burdens rang in my chest, like a church bell, tolling my funeral. Faces around the table shifted, some pitying, some confused, some amused. Drake's jaw clenched. He slammed his glass down, shards scattering across the white tablecloth. "Enough," he said, his voice low, sharp. But Felicity didn't flinch. She thrived on the gasps, the whispers. For her, humiliation was performance art. Afterward, his father pulled him aside. "You can't keep attacking your sister like this. She's blood." "Blood isn't an excuse," Drake snapped back. "Respect matters more." But blood was Felicity's weapon, and she wielded it with surgical precision. In the weeks that followed, strange ripples reached us. A coworker asked Drake quietly if things at home were okay. A neighbor mentioned Felicity had stopped by, worried about me dropping hints that I was struggling to cope. She wasn't just poisoning family dinners anymore. She was building a narrative brick by brick, designed to paint me as fragile, unstable, unworthy. One night, I caught Drake staring at our wedding photos. His fingers lingered on Felicity's forced smile in the background. He whispered, "Why does she hate you so much?" The question gutted me because I didn't know the answer. Maybe it was my silence that offended her, or the fact that I refused to bow. Maybe she needed me to be the scapegoat for her own crumbling life. I started documenting everything: dates, words, expressions. It felt paranoid, obsessive, but I couldn't risk her lies taking root without proof. Ask yourself, what would you do if your sister-in-law stole your house, your dignity, and then your reputation, all while smiling sweetly to the world? Would you endure for peace or fight and risk being branded the villain? Drake made his choice. He told his parents, "It's her or us." His mother wept. His father glared, but Felicity just laughed. "He'll come to his senses," she said. "He always does." But this time she was wrong, because beneath her golden child mask, Felicity was already cracking. And soon the truth she buried would burst into the open, dragging her down in a spiral no one could save her from. Felicity had always been the golden child, but I hadn't understood how deep the favoritism ran until the confrontation that followed her sabotage. It was a Sunday dinner at his parents' home. Drake and I arrived cautiously, knowing tension still smoldered from the promotion dinner. His mother greeted us with her usual smile, warm on the surface, brittle underneath. His father nodded stern, as though he were already bracing for battle. Felicity was there, of course, seated at the table, like a queen at court. She wore her nurse's uniform even though she wasn't on shift. It was her costume proof of her importance. Dinner began quietly, too quietly. Then, like clockwork, Felicity struck. It's sad, she sighed dramatically, to watch my brother isolate himself from family just because his wife can't fit in. My fork froze midair. Drake's hand tightened around mine under the table. His father cleared his throat. "She has a point, son. Family gatherings have been tense ever since the marriage." I wanted to scream, tense because of me, or tense because their daughter had declared open war. But I stayed silent, my nails digging crescents into my palm. Felicity smirked. "It's not her fault, really. She's limited. Communication is hard for her. For all of us." She gestured to me as though I were an exhibit, not a person. Drake slammed his fist on the table. Plates rattled. "Stop. You don't get to belittle my wife in her own family's home." His father's face darkened. "Enough. You're tearing this family apart with your outbursts. She's your sister, Drake." And there it was, the truth laid bare. Felicity could do no wrong. Her cruelty was framed as concern, her sabotage as protection. And Drake, he was the one accused of causing division, simply because he defended me. I looked around the table, searching for anyone to see the injustice. His mother stared down at her plate. His father glared at Drake. Felicity smiled victorious. Inside my chest, something broke. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about a family that had built its entire structure around one daughter, one star, while everyone else orbited in her shadow. Later that night, Drake confessed something he'd never said aloud. Growing up, she was always the favorite. If she failed a test, Mom said the teacher was unfair. If I failed, Dad said I was lazy. If she came home late, they said she was independent. If I did, I was irresponsible. His voice cracked. I thought it would change when we grew up. I thought success would matter, but nothing changed. Hearing him, I felt a mix of rage and grief. This wasn't just my battle. This was his entire childhood bleeding into our present. And still, Felicity wasn't finished. A week later, we discovered she'd been spreading rumors that Drake regretted marrying me. A mutual acquaintance pulled him aside, whispering, "She says you're stuck out of pity, that you'd be happier if you could start over." Drake came home shaking with fury. "She's rewriting my life. She's telling people my love is pity." I touched his face, steadying him. "She can only rewrite if people believe her. And people who know, you know us won't." But I wasn't entirely sure. Lies are powerful when they come from someone society already believes. Ask yourself, what would you do if your partner's family idolized one child so completely that they excused sabotage, cruelty, even harassment just because she was blood? Would you walk away, or would you fight to be seen as human? Drake chose to fight. He told his parents plainly, "If you side with her lies, you lose me too." His mother wept. His father clenched his fists. Felicity only smiled, because to her, even this ultimatum was proof of her power. What none of us knew yet was that Felicity's carefully constructed image, the flawless nurse, the perfect sister, the family's pride, was already cracking. And soon the truth about her life would explode into the open, dismantling the pedestal she had lived on for decades. It happened quietly at first, the way cracks appear in glass long before it shatters. Felicity still wore her nurse's uniform proudly at family dinners, her badge clipped just so as if it were armor. But whispers began trickling in from places she couldn't control. One evening, a mutual friend pulled Drake aside after church. "Is Felicity still at the hospital?" "Strange, I thought I heard she left months ago." Drake brushed it off, but the words lingered like smoke. Then came the slip-ups. Felicity spoke about long shifts in departments that didn't exist at her hospital. She claimed to assist a renowned surgeon. Only he had retired 2 years earlier. When I caught her contradiction and gently asked, she froze, then laughed too loudly. "You must have misheard." But I hadn't misheard. And Drake knew it. The truth broke open one Tuesday night when his father called, voice unusually heavy. He asked Drake to meet at a diner away from the house, away from Felicity. I joined him, sitting in the cracked vinyl booth waiting. His father looked older than I remembered, his hands trembling as he stirred his coffee. I should have told you sooner, he said, eyes downcast. Felicity hasn't worked at the hospital in months. She was fired. The words landed like stones in the pit of my stomach. Fired? Drake repeated, disbelief in his voice. His father nodded. For falsifying patient records. And for unprofessional behavior toward patients with disabilities. The silence that followed was suffocating. I felt the blood drain from my face. Unprofessional toward patients like me. He continued, quietly ashamed. She covered it up. Left the house, dressed for work every morning, but never went. We thought she was just busy. But Roland, her husband, found out the truth. She's been lying to all of us. Drake's jaw tightened. And you defended her. You let her humiliate my wife while knowing this. His father's eyes filled with guilt. I didn't know the extent, not until recently. But I thought maybe it was a mistake, something she'd recover from. She's my daughter. The words stung because they revealed what I had always suspected. For Felicity, love meant cover-ups, excuses, denial. For me, it meant suspicion, scrutiny, rejection. When we confronted Felicity, she didn't deny it. Instead, she exploded. So what if I lost my job? That doesn't change the fact that she's ruining this family. That doesn't change the fact that you deserve better, Drake. Her voice cracked under the weight of her unraveling facade. She wasn't the flawless nurse, the perfect sister anymore. She was a woman grasping at a collapsing identity, and I was her scapegoat. You blamed me? I whispered, my hands shaking. All this time, you blamed me for your failures. Felicity sneered. Don't flatter yourself. My life fell apart because hospitals are biased. Patients are demanding, supervisors are unfair. You just happened to be in the way. But I saw the truth flicker across her face. Every cruel word, every sabotage, every poisonous toast. It had been projection. She had aimed her rage at me because I represented everything she refused to face in herself. That night, Drake sat on the edge of our bed, silent for a long time. Finally, he whispered, she's sick. She's been sick for years, and we didn't see it. I wanted to agree to soften the ache by calling it illness. But part of me knew better. Felicity's cruelty wasn't just sickness. It was choice, layered on choice, until she had built herself a kingdom of lies. Ask yourself, what would you do if you discovered the person tearing your life apart wasn't just cruel but a fraud? Would you pity them for their downfall, or would you finally see their mask for what it was? For me, pity felt impossible, because her lies weren't just about her career. They had bled into our marriage, our home, our future. She had tried to destroy me while pretending she was protecting Drake. The cracks were no longer invisible. They were spreading loud and jagged, and soon the mask would break completely, leaving Felicity exposed to everyone she had fooled. The truth never stays hidden for long. Lies rot from the inside out until the stench leaks into every corner of a family. And with Felicity, the smell of decay spread faster than even I imagined. It started with Roland, her husband. For years he had believed her, the uniforms neatly ironed, the long shifts she claimed to endure, the fabricated patient stories she sprinkled into dinner conversations. But when bills piled up and the hospital called about unresolved paperwork, Roland's illusions crumbled. He pieced together the missing paychecks, the strange gaps in her schedule, and finally confronted her. Felicity didn't confess. She deflected, she wept, she spun tales about discrimination and jealous colleagues. But Roland wasn't buying it anymore. He went through their bank accounts and discovered the missing money, the savings she had quietly drained to keep up her performance. And then he went further, digging into her past records, talking to old contacts. What he uncovered was damning. Felicity hadn't just been fired, she had been blacklisted. Multiple complaints about falsifying records, mistreatment of disabled patients, arrogance that endangered care. Hospitals had marked her as untouchable. When Roland brought this information to Drake's father, the dam finally burst. The family's golden child wasn't golden at all. She was a fraud who had built her pedestal on lies. Drake and I were there the night Roland laid out the evidence in their parents' living room. Bank statements, official hospital letters, even witness accounts from colleagues who remembered her sneering at patients who needed interpreters. She wasn't just lying, Roland said, his voice shaking with anger. She was cruel. And she let her cruelty bleed into this family, into how she treated you too. He looked at me when he said that, his eyes full of shame. Drake's mother sobbed quietly, rocking back and forth, as if holding an invisible child. How could she do this? How could my daughter lie to us all? But Felicity, cornered in her own parents' home, didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, her voice sharp enough to slice the air. You're all ungrateful. I sacrificed everything for this family. I kept us respectable. And now you want to crucify me for one mistake. One mistake, I snapped before I could stop myself. My voice shook, but the words came rushing out. Sabotaging our house purchase. Humiliating me at every gathering. Telling your own children that my husband only married me out of pity. Those weren't mistakes, Felicity. Those were choices. Her eyes narrowed, venom glistening in them. You've always wanted to turn Drake against us. Admit it. You're thrilled right now watching me fall. Drake's voice cut through the room, steady but full of restrained fury. No, Felicity. This isn't about her. This is about you. And the fact that every time you tore her down, every cruel word you said, it was just you projecting your failures. The room fell silent. For a moment, Felicity's mask cracked again, her face sagging under the weight of exposure. But instead of remorse, she lashed out harder. If Roland had been a better husband, I wouldn't have been under so much stress. If you, she pointed at me with a trembling finger, hadn't invaded this family with your disability, maybe I wouldn't have been pushed to the edge. You all made me this way. Her words echoed poisonous and irreversible. I looked around the room. Roland's jaw was clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might break. Drake's parents stared at their daughter as though seeing her for the first time. And Drake, my husband, the man she had tried so hard to turn against me, looked at me with quiet devastation in his eyes. That night, everything shifted. The family, who once turned a blind eye, could no longer ignore what Felicity had become. Roland spoke openly about divorce. Drake's parents admitted they could no longer defend her. And for me, something hardened permanently. The sympathy I had tried to find for her evaporated. Because here was the truth laid bare. Felicity's cruelty was never about me. It was about her unraveling life, her failure to live up to her own myth. And yet she had chosen me as her scapegoat, weaponizing my deafness to justify her downfall. Ask yourself, what kind of person does that? When their world collapses, who do they blame, themselves or the easiest target in the room? Felicity had made her choice. And now the mask was gone for good. You would think that exposure would end it, that once the lies spilled into the open, Felicity would retreat ashamed and disappear quietly. But people like her rarely step back when cornered. They double down. And what came next was worse than anything before. At first it was subtle. Felicity began calling Drake late at night, her voice syrupy, almost pleading. "She's poisoning you against me," she whispered, ignoring that I was right beside him. "You know I've always protected you. Don't let her tear us apart." Drake hung up every time, but the calls multiplied. Dozens in a single night, each more frantic than the last. When he blocked her number, she found burner phones. Then she shifted tactics. Letters appeared in our mailbox, scrawled in angry handwriting. Some were apologies drenched in desperation. "I only wanted what was best for you." Others were pure venom. "You'll regret betraying me. She'll ruin you." I felt my chest tighten each time I saw her handwriting. Even silence carried her presence, lurking like a shadow in our home. And then came the stalking. One evening, I left work late, the courthouse nearly empty, the street lamps flickering against wet pavement. I sensed at first a prickle at the back of my neck. Then I saw her reflection in the glass doors, Felicity standing across the street watching. She didn't move. She didn't call out. She just stood there, her face pale in the glow of a streetlight. I froze, clutching my bag. My heartbeat thundered. When I turned fully, she stepped backward into the shadows swallowed by the night. When I told Drake, he clenched his fists, his jaw rigid. "This ends now," he said. But his voice carried more fear than certainty. The escalation wasn't only personal, it was public. Anonymous emails flooded my law office. Accusations of malpractice, of manipulating deaf clients for money. None of it true, but all of it disruptive. My assistant, Jenna, spent hours sorting through the chaos, deleting what she could, forwarding the worst to me. "They're from her," Jenna whispered one morning, sliding a printout across my desk. The phrasing, the timing, it's her voice. I didn't need proof. I already knew. The worst moment came 2 weeks later. I was walking home when a car slowed beside me. Its window rolled down, and Felicity's face appeared eyes wild. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You think taking my family from me makes you safe?" My hands trembled so violently, I nearly dropped my phone. "Leave me alone," I said, my voice louder than I intended, echoing on the street. Her smile chilled me. "You'll never be rid of me. Family's forever." Then she sped away, tires screeching against the asphalt. That night, Drake and I sat at our kitchen table, the weight of exhaustion pressing on us. He looked at me, his eyes hollow. "I can't protect you if she keeps escalating. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's harassment. It's stalking." For the first time, the word restraining order entered our conversation. I resisted at first. Filing for one meant admitting that my sister-in-law had crossed into criminal territory. It meant dragging Drake's parents deeper into shame. It meant acknowledging that she wasn't just cruel, she was dangerous. But then I remembered the car, the hiss in her voice, the certainty in her eyes. And I knew this wasn't going to stop on its own. Ask yourself, how far would you let someone go before drawing the line? Would you wait until they broke into your home, until they put their hands on you again, until the threat was undeniable? Or would you act when your instincts screamed that the danger was already here? That night I decided. Felicity wasn't going to ruin me quietly. She was going to be held accountable. Filing for a restraining order against family feels like cutting through your own skin. It is necessary for survival, but it leaves scars you'll never forget. The morning we walked into the courthouse, I felt the weight of every step. Drake's hand gripped mine, steady but trembling, as though he was holding himself together by sheer force. The clerk looked at us with a mixture of routine professionalism and quiet sympathy when we said her name, Felicity Harper. She typed it into the system, and the silence that followed was heavier than any gavel strike. The petition spelled out everything: the phone calls, the letters, the stalking, the night she followed me in her car. Each detail turned my private terror into public record. Signing my name at the bottom felt both empowering and devastating. When the judge granted the temporary order, a strange calm washed over me. It wasn't safety, not yet, but it was recognition that what I had endured wasn't family drama, it was harassment. It was abuse. But Felicity didn't see it that way. The night she was served, she stormed into her parents' house, waving the paperwork like a burning torch. "She's turning the law against me," she screamed. "My own brother's wife is trying to erase me from my family." Her parents sat frozen on the couch, faces ashen. For years they had defended her, excused her cruelty. Now they watched as she raged like a cornered animal, her voice cracking under the strain. "Felicity," her mother whispered, "you need help? This has gone too far." "I don't need help," Felicity spat. "I need loyalty. But none of you have it. Not Dad, not Mom, not even you, Drake. You're all betraying me for her. Her words dripped with venom, but her eyes glistened with desperation. She wasn't just angry, she was terrified. Terrified of losing the power she once held over us all. The restraining order drew clear boundaries. No contact, no phone calls. No coming within 500 feet of me or our home. But Felicity tested those boundaries almost immediately. She parked across the street from our apartment, careful not to cross the line, but close enough that I saw her. She mailed gifts to Drake, childhood photos, old toys, a necklace she claimed belonged to their grandmother. Each package felt like a trap, a lure to pull him back into her orbit. We reported every violation, but the law moved slowly. Each incident was documented, filed, added to the growing case. And each time, I wondered if the order was a shield or just a piece of paper waiting to be torn apart. Drake carried his own torment. At night, I caught him staring at the ceiling, eyes wet. "She's my sister," he whispered once. "I used to protect her when we were kids. Now I'm protecting you from her." How do I reconcile that? I had no easy answer. Family loyalty runs deep even when poisoned. But I reminded him of what loyalty should mean. Safety, trust, respect. Felicity had given us none of those things. Publicly, the fallout spread. Word of the restraining order trickled into the community. Neighbors whispered. Church members exchanged wary glances. At first there was pity for Felicity. How tragic, they said, that a family had come to this. But as more details emerged, sympathy shifted. People began to see her not as a victim, but as a danger. The shame weighed on her parents most. At a Sunday dinner, Drake's father finally broke down. "We created this," he admitted, his voice hoarse. "We let her believe she was untouchable, and now she's burning everything around her." Drake's mother nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. I kept saying she was strong, but maybe she was just cruel. Their words should have felt like justice, but they only deepened the hollow ache in my chest. Because justice didn't erase the fear of seeing her shadow outside my window. Justice didn't stop the nightmares where I woke to find her standing at the foot of my bed. Ask yourself, when family becomes the threat, what does justice even look like? Is it punishment? Is it distance? Or is it simply silence, the absence of their presence in your life? The restraining order was only the beginning. The real battle, the one for peace, for safety, for the right to exist without fear, was just beginning. Restraining orders draw lines in ink, but Felicity treated it like a challenge carved in sand. The more the law told her no, the more she burned to prove she was untouchable. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday night. I had stayed late at my office reviewing depositions when Drake called. His voice was sharp, urgent. "Don't come home yet," he said. My stomach dropped. "Why, she's here." By the time I reached our block, police cars already lined the street. Red and blue lights splashed across wet pavement, reflecting in the puddles like broken glass. Neighbors huddled under umbrellas, whispering. And there she was, Felicity, standing in the middle of the chaos, drenched in rain, mascara streaked across her cheeks. She was barefoot, holding a brick in one hand. Our living room window behind her was shattered glass, sparkling on the ground like cruel confetti. 2 officers held her by the arms, but she thrashed, screaming. "This is my family, that's my brother. She doesn't belong here." Her voice cracked, equal parts fury and desperation. When she saw me, her face twisted. "You stole everything. You don't deserve him, or this house, or this family." Her words sliced through me, but something in me had hardened. I didn't tremble. I didn't look away. "No, Felicity," I said quietly, my voice carrying in the rain. "You destroyed it yourself." The officers shoved her into the back of the squad car. The sight of her pounding on the window with her fists still haunts me. But even then, I felt no victory, only exhaustion. The damage was more than broken glass. It was the final proof that she had crossed from cruelty into violence. And with that, the police had no choice but to escalate. At the station, they filed charges, violation of the restraining order, destruction of property, harassment. Drake gave his statement, his voice steady but hollow. When the officer asked if we wanted to press additional charges, he looked at me. For once, he didn't hesitate. Yes. That night, the silence in our apartment was unbearable. Rain leaked through the broken window, the sound of dripping water mixing with the hum of police radios still echoing in my head. Drake sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. "She's gone," he whispered. "My sister's gone." I touched his arm. "She left a long time ago. Tonight just proved it." But grief is complicated. He wasn't just mourning Felicity's arrest. He was mourning the sister he thought he had, the protector from childhood, the one who laughed with him in summers past, the one who was supposed to grow old beside him. That person was gone, replaced by someone warped beyond recognition. The fallout spread quickly. Neighbors who once whispered now openly avoided Felicity's name. Her mugshot circulated online, paired with headlines about her arrest. The family's shame was no longer whispered behind church pews, it was splashed across the newsfeed. Her parents were broken. Her mother called me in tears, begging me not to testify against Felicity in court. "She's still my daughter," she pleaded. "Don't send her to prison." I swallowed hard. "She's not in prison because of me. She's there because of her choices." Her father, once stern and unyielding, called Drake separately. "Do what you must," he said quietly. "We can't save her anymore." For me, the breaking point wasn't the shattered window. It wasn't the police lights or the mugshot. It was the realization that even after everything, after the stalking, the harassment, the violence part of me still wanted to believe she could change. That sliver of hope finally died that night. Because people who want to change don't hurl bricks through windows. They don't scream that you stole their family. They don't force the law to step in to do what love could not. Ask yourself, if someone you loved crossed every line, would you still hold on to hope, or would you finally accept that letting go is the only way to survive? That night, as I swept broken glass from the floor, I chose survival. The morning of the hearing felt unreal. I sat outside the courthouse with Drake the gray stone walls looming over us like judgment itself. He kept rubbing his wedding ring, twisting it around his finger until the skin turned red. Neither of us had slept much since the night Felicity was taken away in handcuffs. Inside, the fluorescent lights were cold and unforgiving. Families shuffled through metal detectors. Lawyers whispered urgently into phones, and then I saw her. Felicity entered, flanked by 2 deputies, her wrists free, but her presence shackled by shame. She looked smaller than I remembered her once perfect hair, limp. Her eyes ringed in bruised shadows. But when she caught sight of me, something lit up in her gaze. Not remorse, not fear, defiance. She mouthed the words, "This isn't over." The prosecutor's case was simple. Felicity had violated a legally binding restraining order, destroyed property, and engaged in harassment. They presented photographs of our shattered window, transcripts of the police reports, and statements from neighbors who had witnessed the chaos. When it was our turn, I took the stand. My voice wavered at first, but I steadied myself by locking eyes with Drake. I described the countless ways Felicity had invaded our lives, showing up at my office, spreading lies online, and finally breaking into our home. Each word felt like lifting a weight I had carried for years. Then Felicity's attorney rose. His tone was soft, almost paternal. "Would you agree," he asked, "that my client's actions, though inappropriate, were driven by love for her brother?" I stared at him stunned. Love doesn't look like stalking. Love doesn't look like smashing windows. That's not love. That's control. Drake's testimony followed. His voice was steadier than mine, though I saw the storm behind his eyes. He recounted childhood memories, the times Felicity had defended him from bullies, the way she used to braid friendship bracelets for him every summer. Then he drew the line. "That person doesn't exist anymore," he said firmly. "The woman sitting there is not my sister. She's a stranger who tried to destroy my marriage." When Felicity finally spoke, the courtroom froze. She rejected her lawyer's strategy and insisted on speaking directly. Her voice cracked, but her words were venomous. "I did what I did because nobody else had the courage to say it. He's throwing away his life for her. He's been trapped, and I'm the only one who cares enough to free him." The judge cut her off, reminding her that this was not a therapy session. But her rant had already done damage. Even her lawyer's shoulders slumped in defeat. The trial stretched for days. Each morning, Drake and I sat through testimony that reopened old wounds: the brick, the trespassing, the harassment. Every incident was replayed like a cruel documentary of our suffering. Her parents sat in the gallery every day. Her mother cried silently into a handkerchief, unable to look at me. Her father never shed a tear, but the set of his jaw told me everything. He had already buried the daughter he once knew. When closing arguments arrived, the prosecutor's words rang like a final bell. "This case is not about family disagreements. It is about a woman who ignored the law, ignored boundaries, and endangered lives. If she cannot respect the simplest of rules, then the court must protect those she has harmed." The jury left to deliberate. Time stretched unbearably. I clutched Drake's hand until my knuckles ached. When they returned, the verdict was swift guilty on all counts. Felicity stood as the judge read the sentence: 6 months in jail, followed by probation and mandatory counseling. Her face remained a mask, but when the deputies moved to escort her out, she turned back toward Drake. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Both of you will." The words echoed in my head long after she was gone. Outside, the courthouse cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but their noise faded when I saw Drake's expression. It wasn't relief. It wasn't victory. It was grief. He whispered, "That was my sister." I touched his hand gently. "No, that was the ghost of your sister. And ghosts can't keep haunting us unless we let them." As we walked down the courthouse steps, the air felt lighter, though the future was still uncertain. The trial was over, but the fallout, the broken family, the fractured trust was only beginning. And deep inside, I knew Felicity's last words weren't just spite. They were a promise. When the courtroom emptied and Felicity was led away in chains, the silence that followed was louder than her screams. For days afterward, it felt like our lives had been hollowed out. The trial was over, the verdict clear, but closure remained a ghost just out of reach. Drake stopped speaking much at home. He moved through the apartment like a shadow, his eyes fixed on memories only he could see. Sometimes I'd find him staring at old photographs, his thumb brushing across Felicity's face, as if he could rub out the years that had led to this. "Do you think she hates me?" he asked one night, his voice hoarse. "She doesn't hate you," I said gently. "She hates herself. You were just the closest target." But even as I spoke, I wasn't sure I believed it. Her parents called daily in the weeks that followed. His mother begged for updates about Felicity's mental state in jail, sobbing into the phone. "She's still my daughter," she repeated like a prayer. His father was quieter, his tone more resigned. "She made her choices," he told Drake. "We all live with consequences." The family was fracturing in slow motion. Birthdays passed without gatherings. Holidays came and went with empty seats at the table. What used to be traditions became reminders of absence. Then came the letters. Felicity wrote from jail pages scrawled in restless handwriting. At first, they were apologies, thin, brittle things blaming stress and depression. Then they shifted into justifications. She claimed the court was corrupt, that I had bewitched Drake, that everyone had betrayed her. She sent one letter stuffed with old friendship bracelets she'd once braided for him as children. "Remember who I was," she wrote. Drake held that letter for hours before finally dropping it into the trash. His face was pale, but his voice steady. "That girl is gone." Meanwhile, her absence rippled through our lives in unexpected ways. For the first time in years, we could walk into a grocery store without scanning the aisles for her. I could leave work without fearing a figure lurking in the parking lot. Nights passed without pounding on our door. The air felt lighter, yet the scars of vigilance remained. I found myself double-checking locks, glancing over my shoulder on quiet streets. Trauma doesn't disappear with a verdict, it lingers, teaching you to distrust peace itself. Neighbors, once skeptical, now greeted us with sympathy. Some admitted they had heard Felicity's rants, or seen her lurking, but hadn't wanted to interfere. Their sudden warmth felt both comforting and bitter. Where was that courage when we needed it, Roland? Her ex-husband called often. His divorce had been finalized quietly. Custody of the children awarded almost entirely to him. "They're doing okay," he said. "Confused, but okay. I won't let them grow up poisoned." He asked if Drake wanted to see the kids to keep some bond alive. Drake agreed, though I could see the weight it carried. Playing uncle to children who would one day ask why their mother wasn't around was a wound waiting to reopen. Through it all, I kept writing. Journals filled with every detail of Felicity's harassment, the trial, the aftermath. At first, it was for the lawyers for evidence. But soon, it became something else, proof that I hadn't imagined it. That we had survived something real, something corrosive. One evening, weeks after the sentencing, Drake broke the silence at dinner. "Do you ever feel guilty?" For what I asked. For being relieved, she's gone. I put down my fork. Relief isn't cruelty. It's survival. He nodded slowly, though guilt still shadowed his expression. Grief and relief make uneasy companions, but both lived under our roof. The aftershocks weren't just emotional. They were practical. Repair bills for the window, legal fees. Time lost at work for court dates. Every line item on our bank statement was a reminder of her destruction. Yet we paid them one by one because the alternative was pretending it hadn't happened. Sometimes, late at night, I thought of her alone in that cell. Did she stare at the ceiling, replaying every choice? Did she curse our names? Or did she finally see the wreckage she'd made? I'll never know. What I do know is this: families are not destroyed by outsiders. They're destroyed from within by the hands of those who mistake control for love, cruelty for care. Ask yourself, if survival meant turning your back on blood, could you do it? Could you accept that sometimes the only way forward is to let the aftershocks settle without trying to rebuild the ruins? That's where we stand now, among ruins. But at least they are ours, not hers. Thanks for watching till the end. If this story hit home, please like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. What would you have done in this situation?